All right, so today we're diving deep into the music of, well, a band that's...
A band that's often misunderstood, I'd say.
Yeah, I think misunderstood is a good way to put it. We're talking Supertramp.
Supertramp.
Yeah, they get lumped in with this whole progressive rock thing.
Right, which they are, partly.
Yeah.
But they're more than that.
Exactly. Their music really resonated, and still does, with a much wider audience. Exploring the progressive pop of Supertramp. Catchy title.
It is, isn't it? Really captures that blend they were going for.
Totally. So the big question is, what made Supertramp sound so unique? And why are people still listening to them, all these years later?
Well, for a lot of folks, Supertramp is, just those big hits, lots of saxophone.
Saxophone solos for days.
Yeah, and those kind of cryptic, sometimes almost nonsensical lyrics.
But were they really just about that?
Not at all. To understand them, we've got to go back to their roots. Back to the late 60s.
Back to swinging London.
Well, maybe not exactly swinging. Picture the London pub scene, a band struggling to find their sound. They actually started out as Daddy.
Daddy! Really?
Yeah, not exactly the name that screams rock legends, is it?
Definitely not the name you'd see on a stadium tour.
No, but then in 1970, they became Supertramp. And that's when things started to click.
That's when Rick Davies and Roger Hodgson really started shaping the Supertramp sound.
Right, and even in those early days, you can hear that mix of progressive rock with pop sensibilities.
Okay, so for our listeners who maybe aren't deep into the genre, what exactly is progressive rock? I feel like it gets thrown around a lot.
It's a good question. Well, prog rock, as it's often called, tends to have longer instrumental sections.
Like those epic guitar or keyboard solos.
Exactly. Plus complex time signatures that can really throw you off.
Yeah, not your typical 4 on the floor beat.
Right. And the lyrics, they're often kind of conceptual, dealing with bigger themes, sometimes even telling stories.
I can see how Supertramp fits into that.
Yeah.
But they always had this knack for catchy melodies, even when the music got complex.
Exactly. Take a song like School, one of their early ones. It's got this iconic piano melody that's both intricate and incredibly memorable.
Yeah, I can hear it in my head right now. It's like, stuck with you after one listen. So, what would you say set them apart from other prog rock bands during that time?
Well, like we were saying, they embraced those pop sensibilities. A lot of prog rock at the time was all about being complex and challenging,
Like almost showing off how technically skilled they were.
Right. Which is cool, but it could sometimes make the music less accessible to a wider audience.
Yeah.
Supertramp, though, they walked this line. They were intricate and thoughtful, but never alienating.
Progressive, but never inaccessible. And then came 1974 and Crime of the Century.
Oh yeah, that was a big one, a real game changer for them. That album really showed how they could create these expansive soundscapes.
Cinematic even.
Yeah, and then still bring it back to these incredibly infectious hooks.
Dreamer, Bloody Well Right. Both huge hits from that album. Even if you don't know Supertramp that well, you probably heard those songs somewhere.
Exactly. And those songs just exemplify their ability to blend the complex with the catchy.
And then they released Crisis. What Crisis?
Yeah.
In 75. What was happening with their sound there?
Well, Crisis shows them delving even deeper lyrically, tackling some really big questions about life, society.
Meaning of it all.
Exactly. It's definitely more introspective, but still grounded in that prog rock foundation.
This is where we get the Logical song, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that song became a kind of anthem for people who were questioning everything.
It really did. And it was huge, which again shows how Supertramp could take these complex ideas, these philosophical questions, and turn them into something that connected with a broad audience.
It's not an easy thing to do. So would you say Crisis? Well, Crisis was a further step towards a more pop-oriented sound for them.
It was, definitely. But they never abandoned those prog rock roots. You still hear those intricate arrangements, like the way the piano and saxophone weave together on the Logical song.
So we were always experimenting, pushing the boundaries a bit.
And then, of course, 1979, Breakfast in America, the album that made them superstars.
The album that just exploded.
Top charts all over the world,
Yeah.
became one of the best-selling albums of all time, and for good reason. It's this incredible fusion of rock, pop, jazz.
It's got a little bit of everything, really.
It does, and somehow it all works together seamlessly. You've got the rocking energy of Gone Hollywood.
Oh, yeah, love that.
And then the soulful balladry of Goodbye, Stranger.
And then Breakfast in America, the title track, which is just So classic Supertramp.
Yeah.
It's catchy. It's got this satirical edge. And it's just fun.
It is fun. And it's also got a lot to say. That satirical edge, it's poking fun at American culture, but also kind of celebrating it at the same time.
That's a love-hate thing.
Exactly. And that resonated with so many people. It's part of what made the album so successful.
It had depth, even if you were just bopping along to the tunes. But then, sadly, in the mid-'80s, things changed.
Roger Hodgson leaves the band.
And it felt like a real turning point. Supertramp kept going.
They did.
But their music, it never quite reached those same heights.
Hodgson's departure was a huge loss. But what's amazing is that Supertramp's music, it still resonates with people today. You hear their songs everywhere.
They really did create something special. They weren't just a band, were they? They were a sound, a feeling.
They defied categorization in a lot of ways. They were progressive, but also pop. They had that jazzy influence.
And always those thought-provoking lyrics.
Yeah, we had something to say.
They were masters of blending complexity with catchiness, which, when you think about it, is incredibly difficult to pull off.
It is. So this leaves us with a question for our listeners. What is it about Supertramp's music that makes it so enduring? Is it a particular song, an album, a lyric that really speaks to you?
Yeah, what resonates with you personally? Supertramp's music, it really invites you to explore those questions, to delve into those deeper meanings.
To find those personal connections, to find what moves you.
Exactly. So go put on some Supertramp, give it a good listen, and see what you discover.
You might be surprised by what you find.